Hey guys, what's up? Carter here. A little bit of a rant video, also a kind of a more explanation on the test I did with the Spyderco, well, if you want to call it a test, demonstration, whatever, where I chopped through the 2x4 with the Spyderco Tuff, because I realized, for whatever reason, I didn't really do a prelude to that, or, you know, a follow-up on that test, kind of why I did it, what my thoughts were on it, and things like that. But a fellow YouTuber alerted me that that video was posted on Bladeforums. Somebody posted it on there. I assume probably by a subscriber. I'd imagine that's how it got there. And like what happens often in Bladeforums is the bashing commenced, right? The bandwagon, and you know, that's one of the things I don't like about forums is the basic structure of it. It promotes clicks, and it kind of promotes people to push a certain point of view, and then other people are kind of scared to challenge that because they'll generally, the thread will be stormed and just be obliterated and taken over, you know, like you can bully people on there. One thing I like about YouTube is there's no bullying, especially for the poster. I mean, you can troll them and you can nag them, but it doesn't affect the original content. With a thread, you can start a thread and it can get hijacked and just turned completely 180 around by people and just make you look like an idiot, or get your, you know, your points completely lost. And one thing about YouTube is, you know, people putting out content can make a video, make their point, and then it's just up to other people to watch it, and they can thumbs up it, they can leave nasty comments, whatever, but the original video still stands true to what it was. You know, people generally don't hang out in the comments too much and form their opinion on that. They form their opinion independently based on what's produced, whereas in forums, you know, when you put something that kind of goes against the grain of some powerful forum members, you know, they basically just hijack it and completely destroy anything and everything on there. So anyways, that's part of the rant thing of forums, you know, and there's a lot of people that would kind of get your back, and they just don't, because they just don't have the energy, you know, to go against some of these people. But anyways, here's the deal with, okay, let's see, what do I want to talk about first? Let's talk about that thread on Bladeforums. The only reason I'm making this video, and the only reason that one kind of upsets me, I'd be fine if I just did some video where I was bored and I just took something and did a ridiculous thing with it, which I've done in the past, and I've stated as much, you know, that it's not a valid test, or it doesn't show anything or prove anything. Here, hold on guys. Okay guys, sorry, my kid was getting a little distracting there. So one of the reasons I took this to heart is because this test I kind of felt actually had some validity to it. If it had just been me getting bored and I'm like, let's see what happens if I stab this through a piece of plyboard, you know, I'd say fine. You know, you're right, that was a stupid test. It doesn't show anything. I was just having fun for entertainment value, just a what-if type video. But this one actually had a purpose behind it, and I probably should have mentioned that. And that basically, I mean, this knife obviously was designed to be tough. That's why it's called the Tuff. You know, that's why it's got super thick stock, thick tip, 3V blade, titanium frame lock with the insert, thick liners. It's heavy as hell. It's, and more importantly, probably the point that I think holds the strongest is the lock bar strength. I mean, this thing, you almost can't even open this with one hand because the blade's so stiff and the lock bar so strong. I mean, you can push it over just fine, but as you can see with this scar, the problem is it's not really safe to close with one hand, in my opinion, because, you know, it'll get stuck on that detent ball, and then it'll pop forward and potentially cut you. But direct from the designer's mouth on why this is so stiff and why it was done that way is basically, he said, in order to have a knife of this strength, you have to make some sacrifices. And in order to have a lockup this strong, you know, and those sacrifices are ease of operation, you know, smoothness, how easy it is to disengage and things like that. So my mentality is, okay, if we're sacrificing something in this knife, we're sacrificing weight, which is lesser of the two, But more importantly, we're sacrificing ease of use. You know, a frame lock, liner lock, the whole design purpose is one-handed operation. And in my opinion, I mean, you can do it, but I wouldn't recommend closing this knife with one hand. Opening, fine. Closing, I wouldn't recommend it. So if you're sacrificing that functionality, which is intrinsic in frame locks and liner locks, what are you sacrificing it for? And that was the point of the test. I mean, if all you're going to do is open boxes and cut paper with this knife, what's the point of all this stuff? You know, this stiff lock bar and the stiff action and the weight. What's the point of that? You know, and that's what that test was, to say, this is the point. Because you can chop through a 2x4 and sustain no damage to the knife. That's the point. You know, and sure, that wasn't necessarily, you know, somebody, after I finally left a comment on that forum today, somebody came back and said, you know, fine, whatever, but that wasn't actual use. You know, you weren't out on a job site doing something. It was for entertainment, performance stuff, and absolutely. Yeah, I don't carry my camera around and go do work for construction workers and say, hey, can I get this on film doing this stuff? No, I didn't. I made an equivalent of that action in a controlled kind of thing in my garage is what I did. You know, because, yeah, I didn't, you know, if I was doing that kind of work with this knife, I probably wouldn't capture it on camera because I'd need to actually get the work done. So yeah, I did take the liberties of distilling some of this stuff just into a performance in my garage. You know, and that's oftentimes what tests are, right? If you want to test how sharp a knife is by cutting paper, you don't wait till you need to cut paper and then film it. No, you grab some paper and you just cut it on camera and say, see how it cuts paper. So I just did the same thing. I didn't wait till I needed to chop through something. I just got the equivalent and set it up in my garage to show what it could do. But anyways, like I said, if it was any other knife, I would say, I'd just roll with the punches and say, you're right, you know, I did it for fun, I did it for entertainment. I don't necessarily agree with being rude about it, calling me an idiot, saying it's the stupidest video they've ever seen. I think that's a little far, but I'll definitely agree that it's not a practical test and it was just done for fun. But in this case, I think it's valid. I will stand by that video and say it's valid because it's taking the purpose of the knife. And so if you don't agree that this knife should be used in that fashion, if you say knives are just for cutting, especially folding knives, and shouldn't be used in that fashion, basically what you're saying is the idea behind this knife is invalid, and you should actually be bringing this up to Spyderco and Ed Schempp and say, I think this knife is stupid because its purpose isn't valid. You know, it's a folding knife. It shouldn't be designed or insinuated that it could be used for heavy-duty tasks like that. Not somebody like me just saying, can it be used for the task it was designed for? I mean, that's what it was designed for. It was designed for heavy above and beyond use, not cutting up paper or opening a package, you know. And then you could argue that maybe the 2x4 wasn't the best, which I'll agree with, but it's what I had, you know, that it fit in my scope of what I could do. You know, I had the time, I couldn't leave the house, and I had a 2x4. You know, it would have been more practical for me to chop through some branches, you know, as though you were camping and needed to get some branches together and things like that, but I didn't have any branches on hand. I just had the 2x4, and yeah, I would say that it makes a more impressive video to chop through a 2x4 than a branch. But anyway, so yeah, it's a little bit of a rant, and also, yeah, you know, like I said, I didn't really get a chance to explain why I did that video or kind of my thoughts on it. I did do kind of the review after, and I mentioned that, you know, how well it did and how well it performed and things like that. But so that posting kind of prompted me. Oh, and the other thing, sorry, if you've kept with me this long, this should have been included in the original rant thing. Another thing, it'd be one thing if the thread was, look at this guy, what a stupid video, look what he's doing. No, the thread, and this is the funniest part, the thread that it was in was a "what's the toughest thing you've done with your tuff?" And the original, the OP, said, you know, I'm looking at getting one of these. I want to know what the craziest stuff you guys have done, taking down an elephant, cut through a tree, you know, all this stuff. And of course he was talking somewhat in jest, so immediately somebody posted up my video, and then people started to jump on the bashing bandwagon. You know, and I'm kind of like, well, what about the OP's original question then? You know, because I was the only one in that thread who had actually done anything with their tuff. Nobody has even said so much as they cut through some cardboard with it. So I find it kind of odd that I started getting bashed by actually being the only valid entry for the thread at all. You know, and if they were gonna, you know, talk trash on my video, they should talk trash on the thread and be like, you know, OP, why are you making the stupid thread? These knives aren't meant for that, blah, blah, blah. But no, they just jumped on my video. And you could tell the second they didn't see me immediately comment, more people came out of the woodwork, started throwing in their 2 cents, and started taking their jabs and making their jokes, because it was an easy hit to make a funny. So anyways. So yeah, just a quick update on that video, get a little frustration off my chest, I guess. Alright guys, take it easy.